I dug a 4-foot deep hole in the rocky soil of the Taconic Mountains and put Kate's gravestone in it. First, I took a shovel and dug a couple of feet down. Then I lay on my stomach and reached in the hole with a trowel as far as my arm would go. A neighbor helped me slide the gravestone out of the back of my SUV, 250 pounds of brilliant white marble, and we lowered it into the hole. In the slanting rays of the late afternoon sun, the crevices caught the shadows, and the inscription jumped right out as clear and sharp as a newly minted penny. Kathryn Knights, 1947-2015. When I stepped back to see if it was plumb and saw Katie's new stone surrounded by 12 bigger stones from as long ago as 200 years, the enormity of what I was doing filled me with a profound and crippling sorrow. I sat on my heels in the grass and watched the evening shadows darken the cemetery. My Kate was gone. The little cemetery where I put the stone over Kate's ashes stands like an island in the middle of a farm field where horses and tractors have worked around it for nearly 2 centuries. The oldest stones that flank Kate's are all slightly crooked and the inscriptions are barely legible. These old stones stand over the remains of more than 5 generations of men and women who were born on this little plot of land, worked the farm in their entire lives, and died here. Then came Kate, the little girl who played in the meadows and woods of Hell Hollow when her grandmother owned the property. During those carefree summer days, Kate fell in love with the land at the end of the hollow. After she grew up and inherited it, she made it her mission to keep it forever natural and unspoiled. Along the way, she turned down developers who offered big money to build rows of condos that would march across the meadow and along the creek. One man even proposed a private fox hunting club with horses and hounds galloping across Kate's land. If anyone came up the dirt road with a fistful of money to buy land and build a second home, Kate sent them packing. Sweet as she was, Kate could be tough. She had a level gaze that took people to back off if they pushed her too hard. She was rebellious, independent, and stubborn. She went her own way in matters large and small. In every map, database, and post office document, the road we live on is called Hill Hollow. But Kate always called it Hell Hollow. That's what it was called more than a century ago, and Kate respected what the original settlers had called it. It was this free spirit that made her so endearing to me, and such a feisty protector of the land. She had her property posted, and if anyone crossed her borders, she flew out the door even in pajamas and a robe, and make sure the intruders left. Every tree on the property was sacred to Kate. She once stared down the big electric company crews who showed up to cut down trees that ran near their power lines. She took on the company's head forester and won. The trucks turned around and drove away. To Kate, owning the land made her protector of all the animals on the property. The deer, bears, turkeys, and she wouldn't tolerate any of them being harmed, even though they ate the blossoms off of roses, nibbled away at the yew trees, and ripped down the bird feeders. She was fearless in chasing off hunters who sometimes got nasty. One said, "Listen, lady, I know where you live, but you don't know where I live." To this threat, Kate gave the universal hand gesture of defiance. Kate succeeded in preserving the land, and today, if you stand at the cemetery in summer and look west over the top of the stones, you see nothing but green valley, forests, and a blue-gray mountain range in the distance. Nothing you see is man-made or artificial. The only exception is a small plank house tucked into a cluster of high pines. Nature has embraced it and made it part of the landscape. During the 25 years Kate and I lived together at the very end of Hell Hollow, where the dead-end dirt road disappears into the woods, we never talked about being buried in the cemetery just 300 yards up the hill from the house. We didn't need to. It was tacitly understood. I liked the idea that we didn't have to pick a gravestone from a commercial monument lot, find a site and have someone else dig the hole, leaving us surrounded by hundreds, maybe thousands of other people we didn't know. Kate wasn't a conformist in life, and I couldn't condemn her to conformity in death. When Kate died and I walked up to the cemetery, I realized I'd have to have a stone custom made to look as old and dignified as the others. I'd have to find someone who could make us new stone that looked like an old stone. First, it had to be marble, not granite, slate, or limestone. From the days of Michelangelo, marble was the preferred material for the most important statuary. To fit it in with the other stones in the cemetery, Kate's stone had to be thinner than contemporary stones and be more petite than the big, broad-shouldered stones of the early settlers, which left room for descriptions of family relations, pertinent dates, Bible quotes, and spiritual references. That wasn't Kate's style. Kate's stone had to be simple but elegant, unadorned and unpretentious. Marble is a soft stone, subject to the assaults of wind, rain, and sun. So, in 100 years, Kate's stone will start to wear down and become illegible. But like the candle, it burns at both ends, and like Kate herself, it gives a lovely light. I always thought of Kate as childlike in a sweet way. She loved children's art and children's books, fairies and fairy tales, books of whimsy, and clothes that were often more funky than fashionable. She always said she didn't want to grow old, and she didn't. From my kitchen window, I could see Kate's stone up on the hill, shining brightly white against the dark woods in the background and the dark stones that surround hers. It's comforting to see it there on the hill behind the house. It keeps my memories of her fresh in my mind. It symbolizes the place where Kate's journey on Earth ended and my life without her began. As Kate neared death, she remained stoic. She accepted her fate. Though she was sick and dying, she didn't talk about it. We went day to day, ignoring the train wreck that lay ahead. In her last year, she spent as much time on the property and at home as she could. To us, the land was a private park. We'd hike up to the top of the hill behind the house to a place called Flat Rock, or walk down to the pond in the evening to watch the fireflies and listen to the frogs, or lie in bed and fall asleep to the rumbling sound of the stream that just ran 100 feet off the front porch. The land was like a blanket she pulled over herself as she sought solitude and sanctuary. On a Friday night in April, Kate got out of bed and fell on the carpeted bedroom floor. The rescue squad took her to Bennington, and a helicopter took her to Albany in a flight that took her roughly over her home. Anyone on the ground that night who saw the blinking lights overhead had no way of knowing that the soul of Hill Hollow was passing overhead and wouldn't be coming back. She was swept away in the dark of night without a chance to look back at her house and land or say goodbye to friends and family. She fought through the night, but by morning she was dead at 67. For all the love she gave and all the love she received, all the good she did, she still thought her life was unfulfilled. She regretted that she never had the chance to make better use of her considerable abilities. Because she was always taking care of someone else, even toward the end when she herself was sick and dying, she never quite got a handle on who she was and what she should be doing. As a child with a superb intellect and a great capacity to learn, it wasn't part of her plan to be a caregiver and waitress well into her 50s. Owning the land helped make up for the career she never had. Near the end, I stood next to her bed and held her hand. I could feel her relax as I told her I loved her. I was terrified she was going to die without saying a word. But she opened her eyes as bright and blue as the day I met her. Our entire lives together passed between us in that final eye contact. In the way of saying goodbye, she said slowly and calmly,
"I love you too, Mr. Peter."
I can't imagine what my life would be like if she hadn't said that. In another 100 years, if people like Kate keep owning this land, it could be as unspoiled then as it is now. I'm old now, in my 80s, and I can't stay on the property for many more years. But over the years, Kate had developed a working relationship with a neighboring farmer who has been nourishing the soil, baling hay, plowing, planting, and harvesting. He's a soulmate of Kate's who feels the same about preserving the land as she did. Someone she had complete trust in to make it useful and productive, but mainly to do it no harm. Someday the land will be his. And someday down the road, when people hike to the top of the hill to look at the majestic view, they'll see Kate's stone and wonder who she was and what she did. When they look around and see nothing but woods and fields and deer grazing in the lower meadow and hear absolutely nothing but the stream and the breeze and the trees, they will know That's what Kate did.